So now we're going to start our painting. So a couple of things with your stretch canvas. When you're doing your painting, try not to lean on your canvas because you'll overstretch it. You can kind of use the edges and the corners where the wooden bars are for a bit of support, but try not to lean on it because you could get a little indent if you leant on it too much. One other thing is when you're doing your dotting, try not to press too hard because you don't want the tool to go through the canvas. It's never happened before, but there's a first time for everything. Not in my experience anyway, it's never happened before. So we'll pick our first colour. I think we'll start with this nice blue. And we're going to try and evenly distribute our dots around our canvas. And when you first start, you'll feel like it's going to take forever to come together, but it does start to come together fairly quickly. You'll be surprised. And you might find that your first colour you use, you're a bit shy with it and you don't use as much, and then you'll get halfway through your painting and you'll think, oh, I wanted to use more blue, so just go back in with more blue. When you go around your edges, try and do kind of one out, one in. You don't want to make it too regimented. You want to kind of keep the edges fairly soft, but with still keeping our shape. Don't worry if you get ones that are not perfectly round, that really doesn't matter. When this all gets really busy, all those imperfections just merge into lots of lovely colours. If you do get any that you're really not happy with, so any spillages, like a large dot in your heart area, leave that bit to dry. Don't try and go over it with another colour. Just leave that to dry, and then we can go over that once it's dry, and it works a lot better to try and hide those once they've had time to dry, rather than trying to do it while it's wet, because everything just gets a bit muddy then. So you're going to want to do this in a couple of sessions. I'd say at least 2 sessions. So as I was saying in the close-up, as it starts to get full and they start to join, that's kind of the time when you want to step back, let it dry overnight, and then come back to it. And it is one of those things that once you get in the swing of it, it becomes quite addictive and you don't know when to stop really. But there's no right or wrong with how full your painting is. It's how you like the look of it. So I like them really full. So quite often I'll do maybe 3 sessions to get it really full so that I've filled in all those gaps. When we do the workshops in the studio, obviously we're doing it all in one go. So they don't quite get as full. So I think that's a benefit really for the workshops from home, is that you can just take your own time with it and enjoy, listen to some music. So you'll see as I'm going around the edges, I'm not keeping a rigid line. I'm just doing one in, one out. You'll want to keep it more concentrated in your actual shape, but you just want to scatter a few out of that shape. It just helps keep it nice and soft. So I will do a time-lapse video so that you can see it coming together without having to sit here and watch me for hours. So I'd say your first session will be about 2 hours. And then you let it dry overnight, and then it'll probably be an hour for the next session, but don't hold me to that, just whatever you feel. You don't have to do it all at the same time. So I've evenly distributed my blue colour, and I've got some bigger dots, some smaller dots. And don't worry if you're slower than me, I do a lot of these. I go a bit dotty crazy. So we're just just touching the canvas. We're not pushing on it. Okay, when we change our colours, just use a baby wipe to twizzle your tool. Okay, pop the lid back on your colour you've just used. And again, you can always come back to this if you want to do more glue as the painting progresses. Let's go in with a nice pink. And the more colours you start adding, the more it starts to come together. Okay, I think we'll go to the time lapse now and you can fast forward and see it building up. Okay, a little bit of troubleshooting for you. So, if I were to accidentally drip paint onto the outside area of my shape that I don't want it, as soon as it drips, get a clean baby wipe that's not got any other paint on it and just wipe it off. Okay, don't scrub, just wipe gently. It will look a bit damp to start with, but that will dry and you won't know that it's been there. The other thing you'll have noticed when I'm doing my dotting is I always hold my pot in one hand and my dabbit in the other. I don't have my pot to the side. That's because if I was to constantly bring my dabber across the blank area of the painting, I'd get lots of accidental splatters. So always hold your pot in one hand, your dabbit in the other, and follow it round as you go. Okay, so I've got to the point where there's quite a lot of dots on there and some of them are starting to touch, so I think it's about the right time to finish this session now. So what I'm going to do now is add the glitter, because at this point of the painting, after your first session of doing all the dots, you've got the most amount of wet paint for the glitter to adhere to. So when you're adding the glitter, you just want subtle. You don't want too much. If you put too much on, it kind of creates a bit of a layer between the paint and the canvas for when you do your next round. So you have a tiny little pot and you want to just pinch a bit and just sprinkle it over, just in small amounts. And what you can do is when it's dry and you've done your second lot of dots, you can then add a bit more as well. But I think now is a good time to add it because you've got the most amount of wet paint for it to stick to. So you don't need to use all this pot of glitter. Just a bit. And you can see from this angle, you can see some of them are starting to join here. Don't worry about these. If once it's dry and once it's all full of other colours, if you still don't like them, you can just go over some of those with a different colour once it's dry though. Don't try and do it when it's wet, because then all the colours will mix and merge. I like to call them caterpillars, where they start to join up and create a little line of colours. There we go. Okay, so I got to the point where I've filled it up with my first round of dots. I've added the glitter. One thing I didn't mention earlier is never stand your canvas up once you've started painting, because the paint is so runny, it will run down. So always leave it flat. It needs to stay flat to dry. So I used all of the colours I wanted to use, apart from I didn't add the silver because it just got a bit busy. So that's going to go on in the second round. And what I'll also do when I come back to this is I'm going to mix some of my colours. So now that I've used, say, the greens and the darker blue, I'll end up mixing some of those with the whites and making some lighter shades. And I'll also add the silver as well. So I'll do that on my second round once it's all dry. It normally will be dry by the next day. Sometimes if you do it in the morning, it might be dry enough by the evening as well. So just keep going with it and have fun and enjoy. Welcome back. I have finished my painting and it's all dry. It's filled up really nicely. I wanted to show you a little bit of a close-up as to at the point where I feel it's finished. I mean, you can keep going if you want to, or you could do less. It's totally up to you. It's your painting. So here is a close-up of how full the heart is. And to me, I think that having it that full makes it really impactful, and I'm very happy with that. You might be able to see the edges of the heart. So I've still kept the form, but just scattered a few out. There we go. So I hope you've enjoyed your workshop from home. Feel free to send me any pictures of your completed artworks. I'd really love to see those. That would be great.